Welcome to another episode of the TIGOX Podcast with Dawn MacGregor-Bromfield as myself. Today, you're not just going to hear my voice, but I have visiting Miss Reid, who is a literature teacher. So it's going to be quite interesting to get her feedback and her thoughts on the poem that's being discussed today. Now, the poem that's being discussed today is called The Wall. I'm going to read it first. We're going to get the feedback, have the discussion. She's free to ask me questions and so forth. And then I'm going to read it again after you get a feel as to the surround of the actual or the development of the actual poem. So I'm going to start, as I said, to read the poem first. The Wall. I stand here in the name of privacy, protection, and shelter. I am weak in the eyes of earthquakes and hurricanes. Yet the false sense of strength is not lessened because of their possible visit. My makers crucify me in the name of adorning me with their moods and attitudes, adorning me with their hopes. My relatives overseas have to wear an additional garment known to the locals as wallpaper. Why then do I have to bare my naked chest to those who enter my presence? I, of Caribbean origin, wonder what it would be like not to bare my naked chest. I have the complexion chosen by those who wish to be embraced by me. My complexion, dependent on my inhabitants, may be as fair as the sunlight that surrounds my outer shell, or as dark as loneliness. Once a year, I seem to be noticed and perhaps be given a suntan or new adornments. I am weak, as my dwellers have to choose my appearance. Yet, I am strong when the family of furniture arrives and has to blend with me and not I with them. When I feel ignored, I shed my tears. My tears are not of water. My tears are not of stone. My tears are flakes of solitude. My fears ignite when I watch those around me grow. Toddler Johnny has found the art of doodle and wishes to beautify me with his signature. Beautify me with his signature again and again. Careless Tom swears that a poster or two of his scary idols will shield me from harm. I am the protector. I need none of Tom's protection. I am the protector.
All right. Thank you for inviting me, Mrs. Bromfield. So, upon reading the poem the first time, I read it from just a literal standpoint. So I saw where, the wall was personified. The wall presents itself as a protector that needs to be strong, a protector that needs to provide safety for inhabitants. And then we see the contrast in emotion. So even though the wall feels needed, even though the wall feels great as a source of protection, it still feels neglected. It still feels degraded. I see where the poem mentions a contrast between a Caribbean wall and an overseas wall, where one might be more decorated and more celebrated, as opposed to the one um, that is homebound. And then also we do see contrast in emotion, so loneliness. So even though this wall has to put up a fight against whatever disasters, natural disasters, or whatever might present itself in the home, it still has to present itself as soft, a place where people can bring their emotions. But we also see where those same people still deface the wall, they still decorate it how they want to decorate it. Also, the wall mentions being noticed maybe once or twice a year.
Yeah.
That's my interpretation of
Yeah.
it. So we see where the inhabitants, even though they are cared for, even though they are protected, there's a line which was my favorite line that says, the children, I think it says that the children still destroy me, or I was destroyed by children. I'm trying to get the specific line.
When it speaks
Oh,
about the
yes.
fairs.
Yes. So
Mm.
it says that toddler Johnny has found the art of doodle and wishes to beautify me with his signature. And it says, I'm still destroyed by children. Right. So I also wanted to know, since the speaker is very different from the persona, I wanted to know, what prompted you to use uh the wall, or personify a wall to um convey the themes of neglect that we saw in the poem, um sympathy, mood of sympathy, and then we also see the use of metaphors. So I wanted to know, why did you choose to use the wall to bring
Right.
across this message?
So when I sat down to write the poem, I was just looking around and what's around me? The wall. And persons will say, if the wall had ears,
Mhm.
that is what triggered something in my mind. And I said, when you think about it, if the wall had ears, it would have a lot of information.
Exactly.
You know, so I myself, at the time when I wrote it, I was in an abusive relationship.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm like, if this wall could talk on my behalf,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that is where I started. I thought I only had one paragraph to write. But as I started writing, it was just flowing and flowing. And I realized that the emotions were just going, no, this is a serious thing. Because I'm from England,
Okay.
and in Jamaica, the walls are bare. And in England, I'm used to seeing
Wallpaper.
wallpaper.
Okay.
Right. So I'm saying, so but I took the literal sense, but then also, as you said, figuratively, where you're more exposed. You're in the different nationalities. Sometimes you're just more exposed than when you are like England versus the Caribbean. Yeah. Sometimes people just have their emotion on their sleeve and they just express whatever they feel like expressing. You just know how they are. If you just even just walk the street and just watch people, them sometimes they're talking to themselves, sometimes they're talking and the whole heap of emotion. And then sometimes I find it interesting if to see a Jamaican laugh. The whole body go down, and
Exactly.
the hand go up,
And then the
you
person
know,
beside them will get hit.
get lit.
Yeah.
But then if you watch a British person laugh,
It's
the
more
teeth
controlled.
barely open up, their bare lips barely open up, and they might shift a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
not this whole exposure of their emotion. And even to show if they're sad today or not sad, they kind of keep that to themselves.
Okay, so more
So that was
reclusive.
one of the things that started to roll up into my poem while I was writing it.
Okay, Miss. Well, the poem spoke to me. I got your point of view or your standpoint. I can see it now. I'm hearing from you because we don't normally get to hear from the poets. So we normally work with reader interpretation. So through reading, it spoke to me. Mother's Day is coming up today, is Teacher's Day. It I derive from it that we have so many people around us that act as walls, people that we see daily. They play an important role in our lives. They protect us, they keep us safe. However, they do go ignored. These people are watching you. I'm sure, as you said about, if walls could talk,
Right.
if these people could talk, they might have a lot of um I'd say a lot of important things to tell us because a lot of us don't do introspection. So if those people could, tell us about ourselves, we would learn a lot more. Also, walls can be fathers, they're not gender specific. So for some of us, the wall in our lives or a protector, bearer of all our stress might be a male, doesn't always have to be a female. Yes. So also the part that speaks about being objectified. and the other part that spoke about kids. For me, that speaks to being a woman and what it's like being a woman. So sometimes you lay yourself bare, however, you still go unseen and unnoticed, no matter what you do, because you're just seen as an object, something for gratification. A lot of people go throughout their lives not being noticed, not being cared for, and feel a deep loneliness inside. So even though they have people around them, even though they talk to people daily, they're still lonely inside because they're only seen, or people only see them as a source. Like, what can I get from this person? As opposed to taking care. So in the poem, it said, they adorn me. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I don't
that's
know
fine.
the
That's fine.
exact words,
Yes.
but it said they adorn me
Yeah.
with their feelings and their emotions. So a lot of the times, a lot of these people go notice maybe on Teachers Day or Mother's Day or Father's Day. So you get adorned on that day, you get showered with gifts, etc. But you are ignored for the rest of the time. However, you still have to fulfill your purpose of being protector and savior. So that was my
Right, because there's this kind of take it for granted.
exactly.
Yeah, because you take it for granted. You walk into a room that the wall is going to be there. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
It's a
in the
constant.
right. So in the same way, some as you're right, there are people in your lives that sometimes you take for granted.
Yeah.
And then you at some point, as you rightly said, sometimes it's a birthday that
Mm-hmm.
you adorn them and you call them up and you tell them, oh, happy birthday and everything, and then they're forgotten again until the following year. And that just brought to my mind, that I have it on my top of my mind to call somebody on their birthday, which is coming up next week. And I have not spoken to the person since their last birthday. But not that they haven't crossed my mind, but it's true. It just happens. That
Yeah.
life just
It's
happens,
life.
and
Yeah.
you're moving about your life, and you don't really think you can't keep in touch with everybody.
No,
But
that's impossible.
you're right, but you're right. There's some very lonely people out there
Yeah.
who just want to get a little WhatsApp, and that can
True.
make their day. I had actually one of my habits, and I told my son this recently, is that I would turn my WhatsApp on and just fling it like that. Like a lot of machine. What do you call it? Like a cash machine kind of just scroll, and it just go and it stops. And wherever it stops at, I
You
message
reach out
them.
to that person.
Yeah.
That's good. I need to employ that strategy. That's a good
And
strategy.
especially when it rolls right down, it's somebody I haven't spoken to in a while,
Yeah,
because
maybe two
once
years.
you speak to often at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do that. And also, I read Daily Word every morning.
Okay.
And when I read Daily Word, anybody's image comes in my mind, like I'm
You
feeling they remind me
reach
of
out to
something, I
them.
reach out to that person.
Okay.
So at least two persons per day going,
I love that.
going
That's
here.
the gift of being considered. I actually love hearing when people reach out to me and say, "Oh, I thought of you. Here's this. I thought of you." Yeah, I
Right,
actually love that, miss.
right.
It's a good thing.
So I'm going to speak a little bit more on the poem and what thoughts were coming in through my mind.
Okay.
We're gonna just go back right up to the top. Um, I have my producer there. Thank you. All right. So, it starts off speaking about, as you said, standing here in the name of privacy protection. So you mentioned that it could be a father who is protecting you and who is sheltering you from the outside world. Because sometimes as parents too, I know you're not a parent yet, but when you become parent, it's going to happen automatically when you try to shelter your child from the wrongdoings outside, things that might hurt them
Mhm.
emotionally as well as physically. You try to be their shelter, right? So that is something that in the wall we can actually bring into the person, right? Then I said I'm weak in the eyes of earthquakes and hurricanes because those are acts of God. Those are bigger than us. Look at Melissa the other day. You saw some roofs come off like paper.
Mhm.
I'd be like, oh my gosh. And then I remember one time seen in a newspaper when it was Hurricane Gilbert, which was one of the biggest ones that we had before, Melissa. And they showed a little shack, and beside it was a huge house. The shack stood up and the huge house tumbled down. Now, somebody looking at that before is going to be saying, oh no, you in the shack, you better come out. Yeah.
Exactly. Come
But
to my house. Come over to the
yeah,
mansion.
that's true. That's true. And actually, as you said that, by at the time, my mother-in-law, my ex-mother-in-law, she's passed away now, but she was in Mona. You know, the Mona houses are slab,
Yes, yes.
right? But she was alone in the house because her husband had died before her. So she wanted to be near to us. No, us meaning my husband and myself, we were in a small side of a house, but her brother was in the bigger part of the house. So what we did was, okay, we brought her up, but we didn't keep her in our little section because there's that one little small section. We don't know when that going to go fly away.
True.
So we put her in the big side with the three-story house, which is on the, you know that we were fine, and she was not. She slept in water.
Oh.
The roof went off the three-story, and she slept in water the night. It went right through, right down to the third basement,
Wow.
and we had a zinc top. And when you saw the zinc top after, it was like somebody held down part of the zinc and tore what was on the big part, on the big part of the house, that part of the zinc that went over to the big part of the house. It was actually ripped, and the floor and our side was kept intact. That was really a miracle. There was a lot of miracles in, and I'm not going to get sidetracked, but there was a lot of miracles in when I think about the Hurricane Gilbert. But I just wanted to mention that one, as you said, sometimes you look and you're thinking, who is a protector? Who is a shelter? Who is a God? You know? And there it is now. You thinking you have this nice big house and earthquake, hurricane come and whoop, you know? Um, Yet the false sense of strength is not lessened. So therefore you feel strong, but you know that there's anything could happen at any time. All
Yeah.
right. All right. My makers crucify me. So this is what came to my mind is that most times when you put something on the wall, you have to nail it. So you're nailing the pictures on the wall, you're nailing the cross on the wall. And this nailing, what came to my mind was crucifixion. All
Okay.
right. So that's where that came from. Adorning, because the reason why you're nailing and putting these things up because you want to look pretty. Yeah. So but what are you adorning me with? You're adorning me with your moods and your attitudes because you've decided that this particular artwork is going to look good in the space. This particular cross is going to look good just right there. So so it's really the mood and the attitude of those persons who are living within those walls, right? And adorning me with your hopes because you have maybe made a space on a shelf and you put that shelf against my wall and you're thinking that there is something coming in the future.
Yeah,
That's
over
what I
time,
want.
maybe
That
I can add
some
some books,
books,
some bestsellers.
some figurines,
Yes.
you know, right? So there's some hopes there. And then I speak about the relatives overseas. We've discussed that, where the wallpaper and the nakedness of the bared concrete wall, just painted. All right. All right. So, again, why do I have to bare my naked chest to those that enter my presence? We spoke about that nakedness of emotion, with the Caribbean versus somewhere like England.
And then also,
Producer, can we move up a little bit, please? Thank you.
I think too, going back to the
Yeah.
Caribbean origin
Yeah.
and what I was saying with parents and teachers, etc. So a lot of the times, the walls in our lives, they are put up and compared to other walls in other countries. So they're doing all they can do to protect and provide safety. However, it feels like it's not enough because they don't have the resources. So also, our Caribbean protectors and people who provide safety, their emotions might be more raw. So, for example, how a parent might discipline you in Jamaica in comparison to someone overseas, how a teacher in Jamaica might conduct their class or facilitate learning, as opposed to someone overseas who has more resources and doesn't have to deal with the makeshift, the DIY of it all. Right? If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Good
So
point.
yeah, I was thinking about that contrast as well.
Okay, cool. All right, so the complexion is actually the paint. That's what I'm speaking about, the complexion. That by those who embrace, because they're going to decide on what color they want to
Yes, to
paint the
paint
wall.
you.
And if it's overseas, what color they want to put the wallpaper in. So it's dependent on my inhabitants, which could be bright colors, could be fair, or it could be dark colors. Actually just recently went to a home last weekend. I was at a home where my cousin lived, and one of the rooms has no windows. And I've been to that home many years, and it never occurred to me the darkness of the room because there's no natural light coming in there. You have to open the door in order to get some light in there. And I never thought of it before, but I'm sure it must lead to the darkness of loneliness. Because you sitting down there, in a place which doesn't have the brightness to
Forces
come
you
in,
to think,
that must bring
introspect.
it. That's right. It forces you to think and get into a space of loneliness. So I thought about that. So once a year, we're being noticed, and we say, "Oh, we need to freshen up the paint, or we need to change this picture." And I agree with you. Sometimes this is how we are with people. Once a year that we are looking at people. Producer, thank you. All right. So I am weak with the dwellers that who choose by appearance because I am vulnerable to them, you know, and that is even as you say in reality, you're vulnerable to the people who are out your boss. You're the persons who put in laying out the rules for housing, how you live, what rules and regulations you have, on what conditions, what the rules for where you work, on what conditions, what you should wear, how you should conduct yourself. So there's this vulnerability that you have that is out there, which is a wall.
Yeah.
So you don't have that total freedom.
And in contrast as well, it says, since it says I'm weak as my dwellers and I'm strong when the family, etc. So that could also mean that whoever is acting as, or whoever is holding the family together is as weak or as strong as the family as a unit. In the same way, let's look at this organization or leader or principal. He is as strong as the inhabitants of the school, us, the students, and he's as weak as we are. So we're all a unit. And I get that from, I don't know if my
That's true.
interpretation is.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. We open to interpretations here because that's what I want. I want my poetry, all my poetry. I want persons to be able to look at it, find themselves in it, find reality in it, be able to pass it on to somebody who they think needs to hear this. So this bringing my poem alive is something that I love. Yes. So, all right. So moving on. We spoke about the loneliness reaching the point of tears, and then I said to myself, "Well, you see, outside of the outside you could have rain, yeah, but inside you really don't have any rain inside." So I think, okay, what kind of tears could I have inside? And when I think about it, sometimes old walls start to shed,
Yep.
so you have stone. So I actually put my tears are not of water because you don't really have water coming on the inside. My tears are not of stone because again, you have the wall with the big part of the stone, but they are flakes. Flakes. You know, so it's flaking, it's getting old of solitude.
I
So
love
there I
that
am over
metaphor.
time being alone and breaking down. Yeah. Now, remember, I mentioned that I was in an abusive relationship. I wasn't, by the way, let me just make it clear. Nobody was hitting me up and battering me up. Not that kind of abuse. But there are many, many different types of abuse.
Yeah. And
Right. So mentally, I was abused. Financially, I was abused. There was a lot of other types of abuse that was there. And it was really after a lot of introspection, after coming out of that is when I realized how much abuse that I was going through when I was in it. And that was my flakes, me flaking off in my solitude because people saw me day to day and I would laugh and give joke and stuff and they don't know what I was going through. Yeah.
that's a great metaphor, by the way, Miss.
Thank
The
you.
tears
Thank
that
you.
flakes of salt.
My fears ignite when I watch those around me grow. No, it actually brought back to my childhood. My father used to say, if you're painting Dawn's room, is she going painting? Because I love a poster. Stickers and posters. Nearly every part of the wall had some sticker or some poster. My favorite poster was the one with, I don't know if you, because this is way before your time, but there was Kathy Levy, who was a Miss prior Miss Jamaica. She had a lovely tourist attraction, life-size poster with Hugh Shearer's, I think it was his nephew or his son, but he's quite a handsome chap too. So there's this poster, and that was smack middle on my wall. and then everything else was around it. But I just loved it to see them together. I loved her as Miss Jamaica. I loved her personality, and it's like I wish I could be like her. I wish I could be pretty like her. I wish I could be graceful like her. So that was one of the posters that took up a big portion of my wall, and my father was like, "We cannot take down all of this to go paint you. So you're on your own. So if I see anything looking a little bit off, we just find another sticker and put it on there." So I thought about that, and I'm saying that there are children that I'm sure that are out there, not just me, who is
Exactly.
having all these posters, right? Putting it up, and they are not the protector. It's a father or the mother. But yes, to you, they're trying to protect yourself, your space, your walls with these posters, right? And my fears ignite as I watch those around me grow. As my children grow, yes, give them a crayon, give them a pen, and you're going to see their doodling. So I'm saying it's their signature, right? But they're doodling on some wall or the other. So of course we will all be getting reprimanded for that, but they're seeing it as a space. So that's something that as a parent you have to try and find creative ways to get them to know that they can mark up here, so but you
But
cannot mark up
exactly.
here. So you know.
Exactly.
All right. So I said beautify me with their signature. Producer, thank you. Right. So beautifying me with their signature is really the doodling. And you know that a lot of signatures you can't read them. Because anyway, they just look like doodling, right? So that's why this signature and doodling I had it playing with each other. And then as I mentioned, that Tom is like the teenager who has his idols, all these pictures and stuff, and he's thinking he's going to shield the family or shield us with that. No, we're not going to be shielded by that. And I am the protector. No, when I felt in my relationship, I felt very weak, and I felt far from being the protector. So I think, in retrospect, in reading back the poem, I think I was trying to reach out for my strength, and when I ended it, coming through all of these emotions, it was almost like a shedding of my own emotions, going back and forth and everything. And at the end, I'm saying, "Hey, what's going on here? I am the protector. What I want?"
Yeah.
You know?
Tom's contributions were illusions. Tom wasn't protecting anything. All along it was you. It was all you. But Tom found a way to take credit for all of your hard work. Typical men. So
Right. So, going to read the
so
poem again.
sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Some
Mhm.
very few producers. He gave me a look.
Yeah. Okay.
Like because I said that's men,
Yeah.
I had to correct my statement. I say some men. Okay.
Right. So, just to mention that this poem actually I got an award for the poem. It's an international award poem. It was a symposium that I went to in 2002, and I performed this poem. I performed three poems, but I did only one for the competition. I did two, like a practice kind of, because I had never. I've been writing poetry from 1971, and I've never read my poetry to anybody before that. I let people read the poem. They can say it how they wanted. They can read how they wanted. I share it, shared a lot of poems. I wrote books together and everything, but I never actually performed. So I was scared stiff to do that. So at the time, there I don't know if you know the name Wycliffe Benny, but he used to train persons who are even currently reading the news on the news, and like on the local news. He trained those speakers. He trained persons who host for talk shows. He was a real good speaker, right? Well, he was married to my godmother, so I went to him in panic because when I told them I'm coming to the symposium and I told them that I will compete, I thought it meant I'm just submitting my poem. So when they sent me down the rules and the regulations and telling me that I have to perform it, I was in panic mode. It was over 3,000 people that were there from all over the world, just poetry. And then you have people speaking different languages, and it's just poetry. It was quite an experience. But before I went, I said to him, I need your help. No, there was no time for me to go to his course. He had a 10-week course. And time for that. So I need a fast forward kind of thing. And he said, he'll give me a little time on his back veranda. Actually had three sessions with him that changed my life. So the first session I went in, I brought five poems to him.
Mhm.
This is to Wycliffe Benet, right? About 5 poems to him. So we're sitting down casually on his back veranda, and he reads through. He's just looking at the poems and stuff, and then he took out three, including the wall,
Yeah.
as he felt those were he could do more with those. Yeah, and he said, "All right, we're going to focus on these three."
Okay.
And then he said, "Okay, read them to me." So I'm reading, and then he said, "Stop, stop, stop, stop. Who wrote these again?" I said, "What do you mean? I told you I wrote these poems." He said, "Well, you don't sound like you wrote them. Sound
Yeah.
like it's somebody else's poems." So,
I wanted you
so
to
that
take
was lesson
ownership.
number one. Yes, that was lesson number one. I had to take ownership and express myself. And where was I in my headspace? Where was I in my heart when I did this poem? So I'm going to have to express that while I speak to him. So I did that. He listened. He said, "That's better, but I must go and practice." And a week later, come back to him after I've practiced, right? So I practice, articulated, even the word hurricanes. I mean, I said, "Everybody here hurricanes." He says hurricanes. I'm like, "What?" And when I researched it, he was correct. Of course, I know he would be correct, but I'd never heard anybody pronounce it like that. And then I started hearing it when we had hurricanes going on, actually hearing the newscasters actually pronouncing it correctly. And I'm like, whoa, it was mind blowing because the average person not pronouncing it like that. So those kind of things he was stressing, how I pronounce, how to make sure. And I said dark as loneliness. He said he wasn't hearing the K. I was saying dark as loneliness. He said, "I don't hear the K."
Yeah, emphasis is important.
Yeah. And then if you think about when you're going to speak to a whole room of people, the person in the back of the room has to hear that K,
Mhm.
right? So that was something that was new to me. So the second meeting that we had, I came now ready. So he says, "Step onto my veranda as if you're ready now to perform," right? So I had the three poems printed out, and I'm dangling the poems as I walk in, and he says, "Go back out, come again." And then I come back in, dangling with these poems, and he says, "What did I ask you to do?" And I said, "You asked me to perform these three poems, so I'm coming on the veranda to perform them for me." He says, "Do you want to win?" And I said, "That would be great." So he said, "Well, come in like a winner." And so what I did differently was to hold my book like it was gold,
Mhm.
so that these three poems were now gold that I was bringing inside the room. So the person who is now going to receive me and my poetry know that there's something special going to happen right now.
First impression.
Yes. So that was my second lesson, how I present myself. And the third one, we met again, the third one. So they were fine tuning the articulation and whatever. So I go. So I say, okay, the three poems now, I don't know which one I'm going to do.
Mhm.
And so I have now been practicing the three. So I was saying, oh, maybe I could do all three just to hear when I reach there, one.
One. Oh, so
And
you
so
had to pick
I had to
which one?
pick.
Okay.
And so now I'm there hovering over the three now, which. And what I decided, they had some open mic rooms.
Mhm.
I practiced in the open mic rooms with the tool that I said, okay, I'm not going to do these two. And in the wall, I kept that one for
Okay.
the actual competition. And the competition, first of all, the first, I think it was five persons. The first one got a big cash award. The next four had smaller cash awards. So that's the first five. Then the next 10, I was in the next 10.
Mhm.
Remember, this is over 3,000 people.
That's a
Right? So I was in the next 10, and we got publishing contracts.
oh,
So it's not money we're getting, publishing contracts. I'm going to get a book published, 100 copies of the book, right?
okay. That's a good
Right?
start.
And then 15 more persons got CD contracts.
Mhm.
So they were going to go away with a CD with their poetry read on the CD. Those days of the CD, right? So, so that when they called my name, I was like, whoa. And of course, I was the only, although I'm British, I'm Jamaican, yeah? I was representing Jamaica. So I was the only Jamaican that actually came up with in the top, in
Okay.
that top tier. So it was a big thing. All of a sudden, the other Jamaicans that were they were owning me. You know,
Mhm.
like we're represented, they're cheering me on and whatever. And so that was a big deal. And guess what? When I came back, did the publishing, I made sure that I wasn't silly because they were saying, oh, if you want color cover, you pay X. Oh, if you want glossy, this, and you pay Y. And I'm like, no, let's just keep it
Standard
simple.
basics.
Yep. Went through basics, never paid a dollar. No dollar came out of mine. And the money I made from the 10 book was more than the first prize cash.
Nice.
Yeah. So I ended up with more cash than the person that went that first person got. And I'm sure they couldn't take that money and just go to a publishing company.
Yeah.
So I felt I was a winner and a winner and a winner again. So it of course boost my confidence. And from then I have been performing poetry and going out and performing and being asked to come and perform. So that's something. So this is an article I just glimpsed on the screen there that the Flair used to be in the news Sunday newspaper, I think it was. They I was interviewed and they
So
highlighted they
what year?
that was 2002,
Okay.
right? So they highlighted the fact that I'd come back and won this prize.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry to cut
Not a
you.
problem. Not a problem. I
So,
finished.
while reading, I don't know if this is like your poetry style. So, while reading, I noticed that it was free verse. So, because
Correct.
normally when
Correct.
people, especially Jamaicans, when they
Yeah.
hear about poetry or poems, they're expecting rhyme. So, they're expecting an AABB rhyming style, or they're expecting some internal rhyme. But your poem is still effective because of repetition. So, it has a lot of repetition, and even though it's free verse, I see where you break it up. I think that helps to simplify it for readers. So you break it up into little stanzas, tiny stanzas. So I noticed that, and I wanted to
Thank you for that.
well, congratulate you. I don't know the word to use right now. Yes,
Yeah.
it made it a breeze, and then the message, the themes, it was effectively conveyed through that. So
Thank you.
great
Thank you
use
very much.
of free verse.
Because that was something too that I actually, after years of writing poetry, I was writing from my heart, writing from my head, writing from my heart. Don't know where it coming from.
Mhm.
Because I was no big nothing in literature class at school. No.
Well, you couldn't tell me otherwise.
You know, and I'm a writer. I write every day, but I don't read every day. So
Okay.
I was like, where is this coming from? That's I praise God that it is a natural talent, but I wanted to know how good am I? So I actually did a course.
Mm-hmm.
So I did this online correspondence course, and they gave me about 21 different types, free versus one. 21 different types of poetry. And when I was going through, I'm saying, oh, I have a poem that matched that. I have a poem like this. I have a poem like this. And I was going through, and free verse was one of the new ones to me. I'd never written a free verse before this. Yeah. So this was my first free verse because I was like, free verse, what's that? Let me
Yeah.
try this. And so I got exposed to about three types of poems that I had not done before, but all the others I had already done naturally. So as you talk about A, B, B, A, B, and
Yeah.
yes, I'd done all of that naturally. So it was quite an experience, and this is when I was mother, teaching, have my own company. I had so much things going on. I did that correspondence course and I got 89% at the end as the final. I said, that's good. You don't have to be 100. Me good.
Miss, you taught
Oh, yeah. I taught for over 35 years. Yeah.
what subject?
Um.
I
Okay. Well, first started with piano,
Oh.
right? From I was in fourth form in high school, I used to teach piano classes in the afternoon and on weekends to my community. Started with like 10 cents a class and that kind of thing. Then it went up to $1.30. You know. But
Okay.
I used to do music classes. I did the Royal School of Music. Actually, the principal here, I won't call him name, the principal here was one of my students.
Oh,
Yes, and he passed grade one.
okay.
So, I forget there's another physics teacher here too. He was also one of my students.
I will
So,
find out who.
I actually taught for over 35 years. I taught piano.
Okay.
I taught dance also, creative dancing. I used to be a choreographer. It's more of a than a teacher, but choreographer. I dance as well as I taught dancing. I also a part of my music classes I did singing. I used to also sing. I'm multi-talented, praise God,
Okay.
right? But then when I in 1980 I studied IT,
Okay.
and so I got the opportunity to teach IT. So for over 35 years, I've been teaching IT. I still teach IT like individuals, but I don't go into the classroom anymore. But
Okay.
there were years when I was in the classroom often, and I taught adults in the evening class and taught teenagers in the day.
Okay.
So yeah, I have a lot of teaching experience,
Okay, miss, that's good. That's great to know.
but not literature. Not literature. All right, so I'm going to go back to the beginning of the poem now that we've got a whole ton load
Mm-hmm.
of background to it. And read again. The wall. I stand here in the name of privacy, protection, and shelter. I am weak in the eyes of earthquakes or hurricanes. Yet the false sense of strength is not lessened because of the possible visit. My makers crucify me in the name of adorning me with their moods and attitudes, adorning me with their hopes. My relatives overseas have to wear an additional garment known to the locals as wallpaper. Why then do I bare my naked chest to those who have to enter my presence? I, of Caribbean origin, wonder what it would be like not to bare my naked chest. I have the complexion chosen by those who wish to be embraced by me. My complexion, dependent on my inhabitants, may be as fair as the sunlight that surrounds my outer shell, or as dark as loneliness. Once a year, I seem to be noticed and perhaps be given a suntan or new adornments. I am weak, as my dwellers have to choose my appearance. Yet I'm strong when my family of furniture arrives and has to blend with me and not I with them. When I feel ignored, I shed my tears. My tears are not of water. My tears are not of stone. My tears are flakes of solitude. My fears ignite as I watch those around me grow. Toddler Johnny has found the art of doodle and wishes to beautify me with his signature. Beautify me with his signature again and again. Careless Tom swears that a poster or two of his scary idols will shield me from harm. I am the protector. I need none of Tom's protection. I am the protector. Thank you, Miss Reed.
And thank you, Miss.